When I was a kid, my parents gave me a Road Atlas of America. It was a big hardcover book, full of beautiful pictures and maps of the country and of all 50 states. It had interesting information about population, industry, main crops, sights to see, and I loved that book. I spent a lot of time with it. I would measure out distances between cities and states and how long it would take me to drive. And I vowed that one day when I grew up, I would do that. I would take that drive, take a road trip around and see all of America. In the pursuing years, I've lost that book, but I never lost the dream. Now, many years later, it took me a long time, but I finally fulfilled that dream. Travel along with me on my road trip around America.
Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and in this episode we cover 476 miles, 4 days in California, and the distance between San Francisco all the way down to Los Angeles. We're going to do a castle, the Winchester Mystery House, we're going to look at some elephant seals, and the streets of San Francisco. Oh, and the Golden Gate Bridge. It's fun. I probably said this before, but I wasn't that thrilled about California, but now that I've spent a significant amount of time there, I love California. It's beautiful. Let's take a look first at just the terrain that I covered in the almost 500 miles from Central California to Southern California, where Los Angeles is. It's wonderful how we moved out of the redwood forest and the old growth forests, started to get into smaller forests, and then onto Route 1, which is very famous, and a lot of beaches and beautiful prairies. So, the landscape did change a lot during these 4 days for me, and I enjoyed it. But let's start out right now at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. It is famous world round, and for good reason. They have a wonderful tourist spot there. Let's pull right in here to the Golden Gate Bridge. And I got a ticket here that they don't even give you tickets like a toll. You get a ticket in the mail later for passing over the bridge. I thought that was a little funny, but which is normal. Everybody gets a ticket. But the visitor center is really interesting. They have this whole big thing about the history of the Golden Gate Bridge and the engineering of it and all kinds of wonderful stuff. They have like these mini displays that show the cables and how it was all made. And it's really wonderful. A lot of people visit for good reason. It is a landmark in America, the Golden Gate Bridge, in San Francisco. So, all right, let's move on, though. I ended up spending a night in a motel in San Francisco. And so I drove around for half a day. I drove around the various streets. And San Francisco is famous for its hills. So I thought I'd take you up a hill and then back down a hill. But I do like the city. It has a lot of flavor. There's an old feel to parts of it, which is really nice because it is as far as the West Coast is concerned, it's not New England, but as far as the West Coast is concerned, it's an older city. But it does have a lot of flavor, and I do like it. But here we go up a hill, and this is all at double speed. I wasn't traveling this fast. But there's a lot of this in the city. And then we go back down the hill. And I wanted to show you something that I thought was pretty interesting because you don't see a whole lot of this, and maybe San Francisco is the last place in America that has this. But watch this now as we get here to this intersection. Look above the car, and you can see these wiring. See that wiring set up there? That is electricity for public transportation. Which I thought was interesting. I mean, they have that in New York, I think, and maybe they have it in Boston and some big cities, but that's like a trolley system. So I thought that was interesting, but in my mind, the trolley system would always have tracks, but you see there's no tracks, and I was wondering, gee, they got that electrical system overhead, but there's no tracks for the trolley to ride on, so I come here to this next intersection, we find out why. Watch this. See that right there? See that bus? That is an electrified bus that gets its power from the overhead track system. I just thought that was kind of interesting, kind of unique. I don't know how many cities do that. Well, anyway, so San Francisco is really quite amazing, a beautiful old city. And just outside of the city is the famous Winchester Mystery House, kind of like a 19th century palace almost, very typical of a wealthy 19th century home, extremely wealthy, and a movie was just made about this. So that's it. That's the place where the widow for like 40 years kept having additions made on the house, and it was important because of evil spirits that the house kept being built with all these crazy doorways and entryways and mazes and all kinds of weird, confusing stuff. That's the house that the movie was just about. So I thought it was interesting. They don't allow pictures being taken inside because of the movie. They had to sign some kind of agreement with the movie. So I got pictures of the outside, and they have a couple of rooms inside, like here, that you are allowed to take pictures of. Otherwise, you can't take pictures. See, there's some of the stuff from the movie Winchester. I thought it was interesting. They took us in the seance room, and they took us around to various parts, and it is interesting, an interesting house. Didn't feel spooky, but it was a nice stop. I look. There's a doorway that on the second floor that goes nowhere, no stairs. And there you go. So that's the Winchester Mystery House.
Continue 41 miles on Highway 1.
Sorry about that. Let's move on to a couple more spots further south in California along Route 1. One is the famous elephant seals breeding grounds. I think, if I remember correctly, these elephant seals were thought to be extinct, and then a part of them just showed up and started using this ground here as their home, I guess you could say. They're one of their breeding grounds. So they're used to humans. A lot of people gathered around on the boardwalk near them to take pictures and just watch them, and the elephant seals didn't seem to mind much. I guess they're used to people watching them. But that's kind of cool. I actually went back twice. On one day I went to see him, and then another day I went to see him again. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And this is right near Sam's Simeon, San Simeon, where the Hearst Castle is, which might be the most famous castle in America, built by the Hearst Empire. If it's not the most famous one, it's one of the most famous ones. So after the elephant seals, and the next day, I spent a full day at Hearst Castle, and there's some interesting things about that castle. It's a very big tourist spot, but it's more of a, like a lot of stuff. It's not really a castle. It's more of a palace, right? Because it really wasn't needed for fortifications or defense. It was more of a luxury castle, I guess you could say. And of course, they own a lot of land around it. So you getting off the main road, now this is all private land for the castle. You drive all the way up to the visitor center, where they have all kinds of interesting stuff about the castle, the history of the Hearst and family and all of that. And then after that, you have to take another bus. You have to take a bus to the actual castle itself. So the visitor center is several miles away from the castle. And I'll show you. And there's actually goats and stuff along the way, but there's the castle up on a hill. So we take a bus from the visitor center where we're at right now up to the castle. And I'll show you a little bit. I got a little bit of video and a few pictures for you. But it's very 19th century, almost like overdone, very ornate. What is that, like a Spanish revival maybe? See, it fits in well with the palm trees, and we're in Southern California, so the temperate weather and a lot of beautiful landscaping and outdoor, a lot of outdoor. They spend a lot of time in the outdoor areas, the various gardens and stuff. Yeah, I like it. Then the pool is of course famous. It's probably been in a lot of movies. Back then, the pool like this, any pool was a luxury, and this one in particular, though, just an ostentatious luxury. I would imagine it was heated. But let's take a look at some pictures. Here's the front of the castle. Get a closer look at the front gate, right? So look at that ornate work. It's really something. So an interesting castle all the way around. There was some contrapunct, some things, some contrasts that I did like for instance, I'll show you here. Some of the insides were just beautiful. I like that. See, with the big high ceilings and the extremely ornate ceilings, all the ornamental work and the tapestries and the fireplaces, and That's just really nice. I'd like to have a banquet there. We're not right there. Let's have a banquet right there. Let's build our castle like that and have a banquet hall. Right, and here's another thing I liked was the counterpunction here. You got like the 16th century castle with pool tables in it, and the indoor pool is another famous pool with a lot of gold. Actually, real gold everywhere in there. Really quite something. So that's it. We're moving. I've continued my drive down to almost Los Angeles, and in the next video, I'll do a couple of things, including Hollywood, a little bit of Hollywood, and Mount Palomar Observatory. And that will finish off California, and then the next video after that will be Tijuana, Mexico. And then I'm going to be curving my way into the central part of America, so you might find some of that interesting.